Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another installment of Scott's Selections here for Friday, November 15th. Before we get into today's play of the day, quick recap of what happened yesterday. Unfortunately, we picked up a very disappointing loss with Michigan State -6, which we took early on one of the offshore books at -110. Unfortunately, the whole handicapping idea was based on the premise that Miles Powell, star player for Seton Hall, would not play, and yet somehow he ended up playing and even scored 37 points. Now, I know that you can say that I just didn't do my research for that one, but I actually did. And Seton Hall's head coach came out and said directly after the injury that occurred against Stony Brook so it says Seton Hall's head coach, Kevin Ward, from Sports Illustrated, by the way, said, quote, "It's not a 1 or 2 game thing. Injuries happen, especially where he's at in his career. I'm probably going to be extra safe. I'll hold him out as long as I need to make sure he comes back to where I don't affect his future. This might be a prolonged absence." End quote. So he said that after the Stony Brook game, which makes you immediately think he's going to not only miss the Michigan State game, but he's probably going to miss another game in the future. Yet he woke up that morning yesterday, and apparently he rose from the grave because he decided to potentially play. Was a game time decision, and then he not only played, but he scored 37 points. So, and yet, despite scoring 37 points, Michigan State still won by 3. So if Powell was not able to play as I thought he originally wasn't going to because of quotes from the head coach from the basketball team, Michigan State would have easily won by double digits. I mean, that was a complete no-brainer. If you take 37 points out of the rotation, Michigan State's going to blow this team out of the water. So we picked up a loss. It was unfortunate. I don't really know what happened with Powell. It's an all-time performance based on injury, but the head coach definitely jumped the gun in terms of discussing Powell's injury and the extent it might be, because that was just completely misleading, which is unfortunate. If Powell's not able to play, the line would have climbed to 7 or 8, and since he decided to play, the line ended up dropping to roughly 4.5, which is just unfortunate. But it is what it is. We'll look to bounce back with a win on Friday. Now, in terms of the play of the day, for college basketball, pretty limited card, so I'm not going to be giving out anything on that. Now, in terms of the NBA, there is one somewhat questionable line here, but I will be giving it out anyway, as I simply think that this line is a little bit too good to pass up on, and it will be a play of the day between the Boston Celtics and the Golden State Warriors in an NBA game that will be taking place at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and we like the Boston Celtics on the road to get the job done at -7.5, which is available at -110 on DraftKings. Now, the main reason why everybody knows Golden State's been terrible this season. They're 2-10, the worst record in all of basketball. They're 1-5 at home. They enter this game on a terrible run. They got blown. They've lost each of their last 2 games by at least 14 points. They've been terrible. But one thing people have not noticed is that the best team in the entire NBA right now is actually the Boston Celtics. And after losing their season opener against the 76ers, the Celtics have actually won 9 straight games, and they will be looking to push their winning streak to double digits on the road in this one against the Golden State Warriors in the Chase Center. Now, in terms of the spread being so low at 7.5, I think it's mostly due to the fact that there's some fear regarding the Celtics on whether or not they'll be jet lagged, having to travel all the way across the country. But at the same point, just Golden State just isn't a good basketball team. You can say whatever you want to say. I know that D'Angelo Russell's a good talent in terms of scoring. He plays virtually no defense. I know Draymond overall this season's been, I think he's been decent at best. But overall, he got ejected in his last game. I question where his head's at completely. But if you look at the rest of the roster, they still have no bench. Their starters still have issues scoring. They have one of the worst defenses in the entire league. If you go stat by stat with the Celtics are better in every single statistic if you just go across the board except for steals. Celtics are averaging roughly 3 more blocks. They're averaging more assists. They're averaging 3 more rebounds. They're shooting over 2% higher from the floor. Their defense is about 15 points better, and their offense is roughly 6 points better than Golden State. I think Golden State's going to get smacked, especially if you look at how the Celtics have performed historically in the West Coast. Celtics are actually 6-0 ATS in the last 6 meetings in Golden State, and the Celtics are 4-1 against the spread in the last 5 meetings between these teams. I think the Celtics win by double digits. I think the Celtics, even though you have to worry about jet lag, I think Brad Stevens is a good enough coach to spread the minutes, and I think that he will do a good job of getting after this Golden State bench, as I just don't think the Warriors have enough depth to actually be competitive in today's NBA. It's amazing how quickly they've fallen from grace, especially with the injury with Curry and Thompson and the departure of Kevin Durant. But this team just isn't good. And I know that this line might look a bit concerning, but I simply have to take it. Celtics have been fantastic on the road this season at 4-1. Golden State's been terrible at home. And I think 7.5 is too low. I think this line should be somewhere in the realm of, I'd say, 8.5 or 9. So for that reason, the play of the day will be on the Boston Celtics, minus 7.5, which is available on DraftKings at minus 110. Now, in terms of the rest of the betting card, I'll give out some leans on some stuff that I might like. I'll start with college football. You have two main games between San Diego State and Fresno State, and Marshall and Louisiana Tech. I will lean to Marshall here at the minus 6, as Louisiana Tech originally closed as 2.5-point dogs and bet all the way up to 6-point dogs, and even 6.5 in some spots. I'll lean to Marshall. That line movement looks a little bit peculiar to me. I'll back it. Lean to Marshall at home. Moving on, San Diego State and Fresno State. It has the potential to be a very boring game. And in terms of San Diego State versus Fresno, I'll lean to the under. It's a low under at 43.5, but San Diego State loves to control the time of possession. They love to run the ball. They don't really throw it that often. And Fresno State, their offense has been pretty, I'd say, bland this season. Not a lot of big plays. Their quarterback's been okay, but they lost too many key pieces from last year's team, and they've simply been unable to replace the firepower they once possessed. So I think this game will be low scoring. I can see somewhere in the realm of 20-17. I'll lean to the under in that one. Now, in terms of the NBA, looking at the rest of the betting card, what do I like? I'll lean to the under 224.5 between the Rockets and the Pacers. Total open up at 226, down to 224.5. Rockets have actually played decent defense over the last couple of weeks. People don't realize it because they were so bad in the beginning of the season, but Houston's actually been pretty good defensively as of late. Now, am I saying this is a lock to go under? No. But I'm saying that it dropped 1.5 points. I think it's for a good reason. I think this game will go under. Lean to the under in the Rockets-Pacers game. Other than that, looking at the rest of the card, leaning to the Lakers minus 10.5 against Sacramento. Sacramento, they've been pretty underwhelming this season, and now they're going to be without De'Aaron Fox for a little while as he ended up suffering an injury earlier this week. So he will be out. I think with him out of the lineup, I think the Lakers will do whatever they want. I think Sacramento will lack just a creator on the offensive end with Fox out of the lineup, and I think the Lakers should win this game pretty handily as the Lakers continue to roll. Lean to the Lakers minus 10.5. And other than that, looking at the rest of the card, I'll lean to the Pistons minus 3.5 against Charlotte. Both teams aren't great, but simply put, I just don't think Charlotte has the bodies to match up with Drummond on the interior. I think he'll do whatever he wants. I think that the Pistons just have a better overall team. I said Charlotte would have the worst record in the league when the season was over. Plus, the Pistons still have Blake Griffin as he's finally back from injury. I just think the Pistons have too many weapons, and I think they will be able to take control of this game. Lean to the Pistons minus 3.5 on the road. Now, in terms of college basketball, really didn't like anything on the card today. I wrote an article about the Xavier and Missouri State game. I lean to the under, but that under has dropped from 131 to 128, so I don't really know how much value it still possesses. But as a whole, I would lean to the under in that game, but the line movement, I don't know how much value. The value might be gone in that one, so I personally would skip it. But in terms of what I like, based on the current lines, I would lean to Kansas minus 26. Monmouth is just not great, and Kansas, it's interesting that they haven't played in about a week since they played UNC Greensboro last Friday. But at the same point, Monmouth has been absolutely terrible. They've been awful on the road. Kansas has the chance to move up in the AP poll based on Kentucky's loss earlier this season. Earlier this week against Evansville. I think Kansas will blow this team out by 30. And I think Kansas just has too many. I just think they have too much size and too much athleticism. I think Monmouth will get run out of the gym. Lean to Kansas on that one, minus 26. Other than that, lean to Gonzaga minus 7 against Texas A&M. I know this game's on the road, so it's a tough spot for Gonzaga, but I really just don't think A&M's that good at basketball. If you look at Texas A&M, they have a good record. They haven't really played anybody. Gonzaga hasn't played anybody either, but I just think Gonzaga has too much talent and too much size, and I think Gonzaga should win this game by double digits. Lean to Gonzaga on that one. Other than that, though, looking at the rest of the card, I think that's pretty much it on what I like in terms of college basketball. I would actually lean to West Virginia. They've been bet up from Pick'em to minus 2.5 against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has been really underwhelming this season. Lost to Nichols earlier. They struggled in they just struggled so far this season. They just don't have a good basketball program right now. West Virginia had a down year, but you still have Huggins as the head coach. Lean to West Virginia. I think the press will cause some problems for Pitt. Lean to West Virginia in that one. Other than that, though, play of the day will be on the Boston Celtics -7.5, which is available on DraftKings at -110. And that's going to do it for this installment of Scott Selections here for Friday, November 15th. Good luck to all of you and your respective bets today. Bye, everyone.